Continuing from the last video, you should have your model pieces ready for painting. Before painting, it is a good idea to make sure to have the appropriate paints and brushes. You will need a diverse selection of brushes to produce quality models. Make sure you have the brushes for both small and large details. There are several types of paints to use when painting Warhammer miniatures. Bases are used to provide an undercoat to build upon. Layers are used to accent the details of your miniature and go on top of the base. Shades are used to create depth in your painting and create shadows. Technical paints are used for specific situations like creating blood effects or gemstones. Finally, texture paints are used to decorate your miniature's base. To help with your painting, use a holder for your miniature so your hands don't smear the paint while manipulating the model. For this, I use a plastic cup with sticky tack on top. Rather than showing every step as I paint my miniature, I will instead go over the basics and also a few tricks in painting. The most basic painting technique is the base, shade, and highlight routine. Start off by applying your base layer to the model. Be sure to lightly dip your paintbrush in the water as this will help thin the paint, making it easier to paint with. It will take a few minutes for the paint to fully dry. Next, take your shade and load the larger brush with it. Paint the shade over the base layer, making sure to get every crevice in the model. Shades take longer to dry. Painting before it has time to dry will ruin the effect. Once it is dry, take your layer paint and go across the areas the shade did not collect in and highlight your painting. This routine forms the basis of your painting process and can be replicated elsewhere on the model. Besides the model, you also want to paint the base your model sits on. Using a spatula tool, scoop out a well-sized glob of texture paint. Spread it around to sculpt a landscape for your model. Once you are finished, let it dry. This can take a while. One way to further accent your base is to dry brush it. Dry brushing is a technique in which paint is allowed to nearly dry on the brush. It is then dusted on the model or base to provide a faint coloring or to create highlights. Dry brushing can ruin brushes, so make sure to use older brushes if you are going to use this technique. With the pieces painted, you can now assemble your model. Take your super glue and apply it to the areas that will be connected. Gently push and hold into place until the glue dries enough to support itself. Use gel super glue when gluing the model to the base so as to provide greater support. The model is now finished and ready for the gaming table.